It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in a peaceful suburban neighborhood when the unthinkable happened. Two men claiming to be HOA enforcers slapped John's wife, Sarah, over a minor yard violation. What they didn't know was that John, a retired Navy SEAL, was home, and their actions were about to unleash a storm they'd never forget. John and Sarah had lived in their cozy suburban home for nearly a decade. They were the kind of couple who kept to themselves, but were always polite, waving to neighbors and keeping their lawn tidy. Their life was predictable, almost idyllic, until that fateful Sunday afternoon. Sarah was outside, trimming the rose bushes, when two men in poorly fitting uniforms approached her. They claimed to be from the Homeowners Association's new compliance team. Their badges looked cheap, like something ordered off the internet, but Sarah, always trusting, didn't question them at first. The men started pointing at the roses, saying they violated some obscure HOA rule about plant height. Sarah frowned, confused. She'd never heard of such a rule, and their HOA was notoriously lax. She politely asked for clarification, but the taller of the two, a man with a crooked smirk, got aggressive. He stepped closer, towering over her, and demanded she cut the bushes down immediately or face a fine. Sarah stood her ground, calmly explaining that she'd check with the HOA board first. That's when it happened. The shorter man, with a temper as short as his stature, slapped her across the face, hard enough to leave a red mark. "Don't talk back," he snapped. Sarah stumbled back, shocked, her hand on her cheek. She wasn't hurt badly, but the humiliation stung worse than the slap. The men laughed, turned, and started walking away, as if they'd just won some petty power game. What they didn't know was that John, a retired Navy SEAL with 20 years of service, was watching from the kitchen window. He'd seen the whole thing, and his blood was boiling. John wasn't a man who sought trouble. He'd left his military life behind, trading covert missions for a quiet life with Sarah. But the sight of his wife being assaulted in their own front yard flipped a switch in him. He stepped outside, his movements calm but deliberate, like a predator sizing up its prey. The two men didn't notice him at first. They were too busy congratulating themselves, chuckling as they headed toward their beat-up sedan parked down the street. "Hey!" John called out, his voice low but carrying an edge that could cut steel. The men turned, their smirks fading when they saw him. John was 6 feet 2 inches, broad-shouldered, with a kind of quiet intensity that made people rethink their choices. He asked them who they were, and why they thought they could lay hands on his wife. The taller man tried to play it cool, flashing his fake badge and repeating the HOA story. But John wasn't buying it. He'd dealt with liars before, men far more dangerous than these two, and he could smell the fraud from a mile away. The shorter man, still cocky, made the mistake of stepping toward John, puffing out his chest. "Mind your business, pal," he said, jabbing a finger in John's direction. That was the last mistake he'd make for a while. In a blur, John grabbed the man's wrist, twisted it just enough to make him yelp, and delivered a single, precise punch to his nose. The crack was audible, and blood sprayed as the man crumpled to the ground, clutching his face. The taller man froze, his bravado evaporating. He tried to run, but John was faster. Years of training kicked in, and in 2 strides, he had the man by the collar, yanking him back. A swift knee to the stomach doubled him over, followed by a controlled but devastating uppercut that sent him sprawling next to his partner. Both men were down, groaning, their faces a mess of blood and regret. John stood over them, his breathing steady, his fists still clenched but his rage tightly controlled. Sarah, still shaken, ran to John's side. She begged him to stop, not wanting things to escalate further. John nodded, stepping back, but not before leaning down to the men. "You ever touch my wife again, you won't walk away," he said, his voice so calm it was terrifying. The men nodded frantically, too dazed to argue, and scrambled to their car as soon as John let them up. They sped off, leaving behind a trail of dust and their fake badges, which had fallen off in the scuffle. By now, a few neighbors had peeked out their windows, drawn by the commotion. John and Sarah didn't stick around to explain. They went inside, and Sarah called the Real HOA board while John contacted the police. It didn't take long to confirm what John had suspected. The men weren't HOA enforcers. They were con artists, preying on suburban neighborhoods, using fake authority to intimidate homeowners into paying bogus fines or complying with made-up rules. The slap was likely a tactic to scare Sarah into submission, a power play by small-time crooks who thought they could bully their way through. The police tracked the men down within hours, thanks to John's description of their car and the license plate he'd memorized. They were arrested on charges of assault, fraud, and impersonation. The taller man, it turned out, had a string of prior convictions for similar scams. The shorter one, still nursing a broken nose, was new to the game but no less guilty. The story spread through the neighborhood like wildfire, with neighbors stopping by to check on Sarah and thank John for putting an end to the scam. Some even joked about hiring him as the new HOA president, though John just laughed it off. Sarah was shaken but resilient. She refused to let the incident define her, though she admitted to John that she felt safer knowing he was there. John, for his part, downplayed the whole thing. To him, it was just instinct, protecting the woman he loved. But he couldn't shake the anger at how close those men had come to getting away with it. He started digging into local scam reports, sharing what he found with neighbors to keep them vigilant. The HOA, embarrassed by how easily the fake enforcers had operated, promised to send out official notices about legitimate representatives and their credentials. Word of the incident reached the local news, and soon, John and Sarah's story was being shared across town. People were captivated by the idea of a Navy SEAL taking down two con men who dared to harm his wife. Some called John a hero, but he brushed it off, saying he did what anyone would have done. Sarah, however, saw it differently. To her, John wasn't just a hero for what he did that day, but for the quiet strength he brought to their life every day. The neighborhood returned to its usual calm, but the story lingered. It became a cautionary tale about trusting too easily, and a reminder that even in the quietest suburbs, trouble could come knocking. For John and Sarah, it was a moment that tested their bond and proved, once again, that they could face anything together. As for the two fake HOA cops, they learned a hard lesson. Never underestimate a man who's trained to protect what's his.